guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. And today's topic is decorator. So decorator is one amongst the other important topic within Python, and it is also frequently asked question during the Python interviews. So it's worth understanding this topic. And to make you understand this topic, we will have three parts in the video. In the first part of the video, I'll explain you what is decorator, and also to understand decorator, we will understand closures. But once we have the understanding of closures and decorators, then we will move to the practical example that where this is implemented. So within the Python applications, where just a one scenario I'll explain you where we can use it. And finally, we will have the understanding of practical implementation, that how decorators or closures are implemented. So without wasting time, let's start the video. If we want to understand the concept of closures and decorators, we should be having the information about the nested functions. So suppose we have a function f1, and this function expects some parameter p. Now within this function, if I define another function f2 which uses the parameter from this function, then this is pretty much the case of a decorator. Similarly, instead of passing a parameter as a function, we can also pass the parameter as a value. For example, suppose there is a function that expects a value x, and within this function there is another function which is defined as f2, and if this function uses this value x within its implementation, then this is pretty much known as the closure. So I hope you are clear with the functions, nested functions and the closures and decorators. Now let's quickly move on to the implementation. So where we would see this is used. Okay. So in order to explain the practical implementation, I will take you to an example wherein suppose there is a web page. Now within this web page, suppose there is a button that enables any user to enter any number, right? Suppose I click this number, and if somebody has mentioned or a user has mentioned a number within this text box, this value or this number which is stored here in the text box, suppose there is a 2 value, and we press this enter button, this is somewhere utilized within the web application. Okay, now suppose the moment I press 2, the next moment I enter 3 here, and then again I press this enter number button. So if I want to store both the numbers, the number 2 as well as number 3 within my web application for usage, then in that case pretty much we will be using the closures or decorators. So how we will be doing this, how that will be implemented, I will use this use case, and using this use case I'll explain you how we will be implementing this kind of scenario. Okay, so quickly move on to the Jupyter notebook. Okay, so let's implement closure first, right? So in order to implement closure, I will use a function. Say I use a function which is, let me remove this. Say I use a function which is enter number, right? And this enter number expects an integer value x. Okay, now I also define a list which is named as number. So this is my list, and if I call this function, then I append this list with the value I enter, something like this, right? And also I print this number. Suppose this is my function and I have implemented this function. So as soon as this function is loaded, let's enter a value here which is say 3 or 2. Okay, so if you see this will print the value 2. Now again I use this function, and this time I enter the value 3. And now if I press enter, if you see this, initially I have entered the value 2 and now I have entered the value 3. The value 2 is lost, which is not our main motive. And now let's see how we will use this using a closure, right? So suppose I define a function, say a parent function. So I define a function, parent function. I'm using the notifications, and you can use any name you want. It is just for your understanding. So if you want to use any other name, please feel free to use those. Okay, now I have this parent function, and within this parent function, I define a list, which is an empty list. Okay, now I define another function, which is enter number. I'm using the same name again, enter number, right? And within this, now I am just appending the list, number dot append, and I am appending the value x. Okay, so this function will expect the value here, and this will be appended by the value x. Now I print the same value. Yeah, so I print the value x, and as soon as I print this value within the main function, I return this whole function value. I would say return enter number. Okay, let's execute this. Okay, so now my function within a function is ready, and it is pretty much an example of a closure. Now let's see how this will work. Let me use a variable which is a feeder variable, which will use this parent function as value. So parent function, right? Okay, so I have defined this value. Now to the feeder, I feed the value 1, and if you see this, the value is 1. Now again to the feeder, I add the value 2. Okay, I'm able to find the error. Basically, within our function, I'm printing the value x, but we should be printing the value of this number, which is where the error is. Okay, so now let's execute this, and now this, and then I would enter the value 1. Now as soon as I enter the value 2, if you see this, it has taken both the value 1 and 2. Now if I add the value 3, so it has taken the value 3. So if you want to understand the whole functionality, let's start from here. This parent function, it just had one empty list. Now we have added another function, which is enter number, which was expecting an input, and every time we were entering the input, this number is appending this list, and as soon as the list is appended, it is again saved here. Now next time when you enter the number, this list is not initialized, and when this list is not initialized, which means we are not changing this and we are storing the value, which is our intent also. So pretty much this is a function within a function, and the value which is already there in this function is used here. So we can call this as a closure. I hope this makes sense. Now let's quickly move to the decorators. Now decorator is also similar to closure, but there's a difference, that within the decorator we are passing the value as a function. So when we are passing the value as a function, and that function expects a parameter, so that value is used within the nested function or a function within a function. So this is a little bit tricky case to understand, but let's understand using a example. Okay, now let me define again a parent function. So I'm defining a parent function. Okay, so this is my parent function. Now within this parent function, I am doing let me define a message here. Uh, this expects a, or let's say this expects a function, right? Okay. Now let me define another function which is child function, and let us implement the child function as print this is Himanshu's YouTube channel, and then I'm also calling this function, and then I am also printing please subscribe to my channel. Okay, so here what we have done is we have created one parent function, and then within that parent function we have defined another function which is a child function. And if you see this, what all we are passing here as a parameter, it is being used in the child function. Okay, now let me return this child function. Okay, so okay, let me just say that here as Himanshu YouTube channel. Okay, just to avoid the complication. Okay, I think it should work now. Okay, now let's define another function which is say child2, and here we are simply printing example for decorator. Okay, so if you see this, I have implemented function within a function, and then the function which I'm going to pass as a parameter to this parent function, I have defined this as here. Okay, let's okay, should work now. Okay, now let's pass this child2 within this function. Okay, so I would use this here, and I will pass the value child2. Okay, okay, so if you see this, as soon as I pass this parameter which is also a function within the parent function, it has moved the cursor here to the child function, and then it has executed this print command, and then this has called this function which was defined here, right? And then the next print statement was executed, and then finally the print final the value is returned to this function. Now we understand that in decorators we are doing nothing but just passing function that is expecting a value as a parameter, right? We can also increase the complexity of this function by calculating something, putting value x, and then using that x for maybe square root or anything, and then x value we then use for this child function. So we can use n number of cases, and then that can be implemented. But the basic functionality of this overall decorator is that there is a nested function. The parent function expects a function, and that function value is used within the child function. There is another way to use it, and let me show you how we use it. So this is our child function, right? So if I use at the rate, my decorator is parent function, right? So parent parent function, and underneath this I will define this. So if I execute this, if you see this is this, so this at the rate is a decorator syntax, and this will automatically be used as a parameter. So I hope this video was useful for you. If you like this video, please do like, share, and subscribe, and see you in the next video.